What's up, guys? I'm here because it's Tuesday. Kyle Milan coming in to talk about marketing and sales. We got a new platform we're trying out. Laura hates it so far, but we're going to figure it out and make her super comfy with using this new platform for lives. So for those of you that are new to the content, every single Tuesday, I think, except for maybe one Tuesday, I come live and talk about sales. Does not matter if you're B2B, B2C, starting a company, running your company, working for someone in marketing, there's content here for you. Head over to YouTube, type in my name and subscribe and turn on notifications where you can find over 2,000 videos. We've got over 1 million hours, I think, or 1 million views or 1 million hours of watch time, something like that, something crazy. Insert crazy statistic here that makes me build enough trust with you to where you subscribe and turn on notifications. That's what we're about. So today is going to be fun because we're talking about funnels. So how do you go from clicking to conversions within your marketing funnel? And we're going to jump right into it. So if you Google search it and go to the images, everybody's got the same type of funnel. It's like attract, and then it's like obtain, and then it just goes through the process, right? Communication, etc. So Google search it. They're all pretty standard. Mine is really no different. The way that we do things, no different. I just changed the names of it. So the first one's going to be, whether it's attention is a common one. The first step in the funnel is going to be attract. So if you look at the funnel, and we don't have the second camera set up for me to go on the screen, which is no big deal. But if you look at a funnel, typical marketing funnel, Laura's smiling behind the camera. Typical marketing funnel, the top is going to be the attract, attention. How are you getting people in? And so here's the issue that we see with all the clients that we've worked with, people that I consult with, our own internal team, and what I've done over the last 15, 20 years doing this, is that everybody focuses on like get somebody in, work them through the process, and then close them. But there's so many different bottlenecks within each step of the funnel. And this is what we're going to go through. So the attract portion of it, getting top of funnel leads brought in, you got to think of like, how can I attract my target demographic to know about what it is that we do? And so if you break this into one of two categories, either somebody is looking for a solution to their problem and you have that solution, or they are not looking actively for it. So you have to make sure that from a marketing strategy standpoint, you have things that are covering both aspects. So if they're looking for it, then they're going to probably go to Google search. They're going to probably comb through content to understand their problem and how they can solve it. So they're going to do some research. But they're like, to sum it up, they're basically going to be searching for you. So if they are searching for you, where are they going to be searching? Google's going to be one of them. AI, ChatGPT, all of the other competitors of ChatGPT is going to be another one. Then you've got social side. They might be searching for somebody on social. It blew my mind years ago when I had a lead come in and we converted him to a customer, and he was with us for, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years before he built out his own team. And I was like, how'd you find us? And he said, I looked at my current connections on LinkedIn and typed in marketing, and your name popped up. And that's how we started. So he didn't even go to like normal search. He was looking for who he's connected with. So very strategic, but people do search on social, in particular LinkedIn, especially if it's B2B, for people that have content because they're trying to educate themselves. So searching or not searching, let's talk about searching first. If people search on Google, there's two spots that you can show up. You can either show up organically or you can show up paid. Now, where specifically in it, that's going to depend on what your strategy is. Also, now with Gemini on Google, it's pulling AI results from the first set of sections of the organic top 3, top 5, and bringing those to the top and adding their summary to it and be like, hey, this is what you asked for. This is the solution. Here's the links that I'm going to validate and say, this is where I got my information from. They're not pulling it off of like page 20. They're pulling off of relevant stuff, whether it's videos, images, or content, articles, pages, etc. It's in the search results because they assume, hey, if you're at the top, it must be a good answer because people are clicking, going to the page, spending time on site, etc. So on that, you have to be paying attention to your SEO. Understand that how they're going to search and the phrase that they're going to search are going to be differently based on their part in the process. If they're just doing research, longer tail keywords like what is the best X, Y, and Z, or how do I overcome this problem? On the flip side of it, if they're just looking for a list of providers, show me the top 10 of these companies, regardless of industry. It could be personal injury lawyers. It could be robotics manufacturers. It can be health and wellness centers. It does not matter. They're still going to either be saying like long tail or short tail. And you have to be covering both of those with your SEO strategy, and you have to be tracking it and measuring it. That's the only way to do it. If you're not tracking and measuring your position, then how could you possibly create a strategy? Because if you have nothing to measure against, you're not actually managing it. So Organic SEO is going to handle the organic side of the search. But even within that, think about when you search something, you've got the section of the AI first, then you've got paid ads below it. So you got to have some sort of paid search media campaign strategy going. Then you've got videos below that. Are you creating content? Then you've got the organic results below that. So like each different search phrase is going to come up with different results. And sometimes if there's no video content, then that section is going to be hidden from the search results, but your strategy has to cover each one. So when it comes to the attract portion of it, they're searching, you want to make sure that you are able to be found and that you're putting an effort into it. Also on the paid side, when they search, showing up on paid. Now, if they're not searching, that's where it gets into like the hook and the outbound and trying to grab their attention, right? So if they're not searching, you can run paid ads on social and put something in front of them that entices them to click to then go into the top of your funnel. You can do outbound, which works great. Outbound email marketing through your CRM system or using a combination of systems in your tech stack and go in front of them and say, hey, I know that you probably have this problem, or do you currently have this issue with X, Y, and Z? If you do, I would love to talk to you. Where people get it wrong and where it doesn't go from a click to an actual conversion is that they're not understanding, like they go straight into sales and straight into facts, and you're missing the second step of the funnel, which right below attract is going to be ask. And that's where you have to do fact finding. So you can call it ask, you can call it discover, you can call it listening. You have to ask questions. But on outbound, a lot of times people make assumptions to, you have this problem. You're in this industry, and I know people that have this problem. And therefore you're making an assumption and you hit them straight in the face with some facts and some marketing, and you get too heavy in that initial email. There's also so many things in the email marketing world with deliverability of the email. So we went through this with some system changes that we did in the last 12 months, where if I send you an email and I send 20 a day, 50 a day, 1,000 a day, sometimes we've had clients that are like, oh yeah, we just send out like 5,000 emails to our group in one day. The deliverability and health score of your email address and your domain goes down because all of the systems know that you're sending out mass amounts of email, right? Because there's only so many providers of email systems out there, whether it's Microsoft, Google, or people just throwing their tech stack on top of it. And there's, let's say, a dozen more of those. The whole process around like, oh, my email marketing isn't working. Well, maybe it's because you didn't set it up properly and go through it. There is a warm-up process. A new email address at a company has to be warmed up. A new domain has to be warmed up. What do I mean by that? You need to have a system and send emails within that system at a couple a day and make sure that they are delivered into the inbox. You don't have to set this up yourself. There's systems out there. If you just type in email warm up, you'll come up with like Lemwarm, Instantly, Apollo has it. All these different systems have it to where you're warming up your inbox, and which is then in turn warming up your outbox, right? And you want to slowly creep out. Like here we have a 30-day ramp up for our clients. 30, sometimes we have to go 60 days, depending on what type of volume we're trying to do, where you're slowly sending out emails, building trust with the providers, understanding that you're not just going to go out there and spam. So you have to do that because that's going to affect your deliverability, which then affects your open and your click rate. Once you do deliver it, that's where if you go to marketing with your first punch and just make assumptions, then you're going to not get a good response rate or a click rate, because they're just going to see all this plethora of copy, like a paragraph, and be like, oh, this is too much spam. Or if you start with like, oh no, we use first name in the subject line. We use company name in the intro. We use this school that they went to. We use all this personalization. Yeah, it's probably not going to work because everybody's doing it. So you have to come outside of the box and do something differently. So when you're trying to attract them, going with the outbound, email marketing works, paid ads work, display ads, geofencing, but you have to be relevant. So let's say that you've got that first step done, because we could do a whole video series on how to attract people to come into the top of your funnel. Or just for the sake of time, I'm not going to spend the entire episode on it, but you got people in the attract. Okay, the next step is ask. So when you're in the ask part or the discover part or the fact finding, you have to ask questions. When you're talking to them for the first time, it should be more about them answering your questions than you pitching your services or solution. Have a list of questions. I've talked about this dozens of times, 5 to 7 key questions that you need answered. You have to have that information before you could possibly present a solution. You never want to go in and say solution first. That's the show up and throw up method I've talked about pitching for the last 5 years. You want to go in and say, hey, what's the current problem that you're having with this? And then from there, ask additional follow-ups. And they're going to get them talking and get them to explain what it is that they're looking for, because you will not have a conversion. You will have the click in to no conversion if you don't ask the right questions to fully understand it. Because if you're not asking the right questions, when you get into the second and the third step of the funnel, you're not going to get past that and you're never going to close them as a customer. So ask all of the questions to really understand what is the current situation. The next step is going to be the trust level. So it's attract, ask, trust. The trust level is that's where you have to build trust. You can't close a deal without trust. You have to make sure that they trust that you have the solution to their problem, which is why you have to ask the questions. So ask the questions, understand their current situation. And you say, hey, okay, based on what you just said, we have all of these solutions, but I think that this one would be best. Again, customize it around specifically what they're doing. This does not matter. This framework is not specific to any industry, any size company, B2B, B2C. It doesn't matter. If somebody walks into a car dealership to buy a car, this framework still matters versus somebody that's looking for a daycare, a med spa, a machinery. It's all the same. So ask the questions, then you have to build the trust by offering solutions to them in the way of like, okay, so you said these things, so I'm going to build trust. I'm listening to what you're saying. You said that you answer these questions and this is your current situation. Now I'm going to explain to you what I think is the best fit for you to build that trust and how we've done that for other companies. So it's a little bit of like social proof, testimonials, etc., but not literally like, hey, here's some testimonials. Let me play them for you. But you're trying to build that trust to where once you go into giving them the actual price tag behind it, it's going to be less of a shocker because they already know that you ask the right questions, you understand what it is that they need, you're building that trust, and they're thinking like, yes, this person could solve my problem. And then when you hit them with that solution and the price behind it, they're going to be less like, oh, dude, this person doesn't even know what I mean. I'm not paying that. That is so expensive, especially for you higher ticket people that are charging things that are 10, 20, 50, 100 grand to millions of dollars. They are not going to be able to close. They're going to get stuck there if you don't build that trust first. So after the trust comes a solution. That's where you want to say, based on all this, here's a solution, here's the cost, here's the terms. Be fully open with the exact steps, walk them through it so they understand it. I can't tell you how many deals I've seen get stuck in that stage of the pipeline because they didn't fully understand what it is that was happening, or deals that say, you know what, we went with somebody else. You know what, I chose this other company, this other software to handle my problem because they had X, Y, and Z. And it's like, wait, but we had that. Well, you as a salesperson didn't build that trust and offer up the solution good enough to make sure that they understand what it is that you're actually trying to sell them and what type of program you're trying to put them on. So in all these first four stages, attract, ask, trust, solution, there can be stalls and delays at each step. That's where the whole click to conversion, you want to convert them from funnel step 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and ideally you get to step 5, or from 1 to 5 if it's quick enough and depending on your sales process. But every single layer you have bottlenecks and people are stuck. And so if you're looking at your data, you can say these are leads and they're tracked, and then it becomes a marketing qualified lead. Then the salespeople talk to them. It's a sales qualified lead. Then it becomes a deal. That's the solution part, right? Once you hit step 4, solution, that's a deal, an opportunity. You're putting numbers to paper. You've got something for them to sign. Each step of these first 4 steps, it will get stuck. And the difference between those that are growing drastically, and this is something that we do with all of our clients here, is what do you do when those people get stuck? Do you leave them? Do you have rules in place? What's the trigger that you're going to have to where when they get stuck in that part of the funnel that you try and move them to the next one? It shouldn't just be, I emailed them, I called them once. There should be a whole process. When people get stuck here, if they're in this stage for X amount of time, then this thing happens. So imagine building out like a workflow funnel. They get to that step. If they stay in that step, what's fine for you and your business? It's 21 days. I just went through this with a client like 2 months ago. And I said, you've got a lot of people in the pricing scent, like 120. And if I look at the activity, some of these are like a month or 2 months or 6 weeks old. What is your sales process? And the customer's like, oh, well, so for these types of things, we can close these people quickly based on what they need. That's like 7 to 10 days close. For these other people, it's like 1 to 2 months. And for this other group of people, this is like a long-term project where they're bidding on a bigger project and their customer has to accept it before they can buy from us. So that's like 6 months plus. Okay, perfect. So for each step of that, when it goes to pricing scent, we're going to create triggers based on each of those different scenarios. This one should be closed or activity within 7 to 10 days. If it goes outside of that, then there's going to be a follow-up email. Then there's going to be a task for the salesperson to follow up. The next one that's like 1 to 2 months, once it gets past that amount of days with no activity, no movement, no responses, then we move it into the next stage of the trigger and say, we're going to do some marketing automation from there. That's what it's all about, is like, it's people can come on here and say, this is how you attract people into the funnel. Okay, great. I've got leads, but then how do I convert those leads? That's like the sales enablement process of training and teaching. And then once you convert those leads into a deal, the difference between those that make a lot of money and those that make average amounts of money are those that can pull those people out of those bottlenecks in their pipeline and those ghostings and those stalls. Right. Those people that don't forget about anybody, that have automation and systems in place, no deal, no opportunity gets untouched, and they're never forgotten about, because you never know when they actually do bring this project or this problem back to the top of their brain. Because when they go into it, they're like, this is a big problem I have right now. And you're there to solve it for them. But stuff comes up. Maybe that problem from an importance standpoint gets less important because there's other things that come up. I do it here all the time. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. If there's a problem that I'm trying to solve, but another problem comes up that's a bit more important or more impactful, that's going to then take the place of the top problem, and that's going to get the most amount of my attention. The same thing happens with your customer base. They're in the same type of situation. So it may not be like they hate you, they forgot about you, they're not trying to do it right now. It's just, it's not the top of their attention. So at each stage when they get there, especially after you've gone into the solution stage, sent a price, sent a proposal, create an opportunity, given them the full solution on paper for them to sign, or presenting it to them in person, if that's the type of business you have, then you have to make sure that those people that don't move on to the next step in closing and to a customer, that they aren't forgotten about. And that is going to mean the difference. So in order to do that, set up those triggers, make sure you continue to have people coming back into the top of the funnel, right? It's a big circle. So they come back into the top of the funnel, work their way through it. Some people work all the way through the funnel and then exit and say close lost. Some people work all the way through the funnel down to the bottom and say they're now a customer. And some people get stuck right in that stage, and you have to have things in place to move them. So just think like, how am I going to move the person down to each stage of the funnel? What do I have in place from an automation standpoint? Don't rely on people just remembering to do it, or like creating tasks for people like, hey, don't forget to call this person. You have to have some sort of automation from an email marketing standpoint in there. So that way that can automate somewhat of the outreach and the follow-up, just very basic high level. Because when you get into the closing stage, so after you've sent them the solution or developed the solution, now you're trying to close them. That's where most people get stuck. And that's where most people spend the most amount of their time and attention, is in the closing phase before it's a customer. So it's like, I sent them the pricing. Now I'm going to follow up, and it's stuck there. And then we'll see what our conversion rate is from once we sent pricing and our closing ratio. But the problem is that so many people were stuck 3 stages above. And I don't know, I've never met a sales team out there where it's like every single salesperson, once marketing throws a lead over the fence and says marketing qualified lead, half the time salespeople say those leads suck. And the other half of the time they're like, okay, yeah, we got it. And you gave me 10. And out of those 10, I quoted 4, or I've got 3 that I've sent pricing to, and I'm going to close 1 out of those 10. And the reason why is that all 10 of those didn't make it to the quoting stage. Some of them are unqualified, right? Sales gets involved and is like, oh, what they're looking for, we can't do, or they're out of our budget range, et cetera, right? So maybe 10, 20% become unqualified, and they exit the pipeline at that first stage of like the asking questions. And then from there, people get stuck in stages, but they forget about them because they're so focused on like the least resistant deals, because like, ooh, I'm going to close this deal. So I'm focusing all my time and attention on those least resistant deals that keep on moving step down in the funnel, because you want to push them to close because they have a higher likelihood. And that's how you're going to earn your reputation. That's how you're going to get money from commission. That's how you're going to get praise from management or from your boss or from other coworkers. So you're trying to focus all your attention on that, when realistically you need to make sure that you're paying attention to each step. So if you take a salesperson that does the most at a company, they will follow the steps to where nobody's ever forgotten about, versus salespeople that get lucky, sometimes get some big wins just because they happen to be there when they come through. If they don't have that strict follow-up, if they're constantly being told, dude, you're not following up with your stuff, then those people will not be the A players and the winners. They're going to produce results, but they're not nearly going to be the same as if somebody that at the same amount of time focusing that does all those steps. Those people will crush them every single time. Guys, I appreciate your time watching this on replay. Head over to every major podcast platform and type in "Your Marketing Sucks," and you will find all of our content there. We've moved over to the new theme, the new name. Head over to YouTube, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I will see you guys on the next one.